Hey, everybody. Good evening. We're starting a minute early tonight. There's just so much to talk about. I had to come on early. Normally, I'm like a minute or two late, and there's just a lot to say. Welcome to Courtroom Insider. I'm Nate Eaton coming to you live from a hot, beautiful Phoenix today. It hit 100 degrees. I think my car said 104, my Teton Toyota car. Thank you, Teton Toyota, for letting me borrow one of your cars and bring it here to beautiful Arizona. I'm looking out behind the camera, out the window, and the sun is setting, and it was hot outside, and boy, was it hot inside the courtroom. This was a day. We have so much to discuss. If you're into this case, which I think most of you are, you want to go back and watch the witness testimony. You want to watch today. We've put the whole thing on YouTube and broken it up into the different witnesses. So you can go check that out. Would love to know where you're watching from. And if you have any questions, we'll get to your questions at the end of the program tonight. Our moderator, Peggy, is standing by ready to go. So let's just jump into it. The quote of the day: don't flatter yourself. If you missed it, we'll get into it just a minute. Lori questions the witnesses. Here's what we've got coming up. Lori is fired up. The fired up Lori we saw with Keith Morrison during her interview a few weeks ago, and the fired up Lori that we've heard about, the passionate one that, really wants to get her word in. We saw that. Boy, did we see that today. We also saw her cross-examine Detective Daniel Coons. This was the Chandler detective who was on the stand yesterday with the prosecution, and then Lori began cross-examining him yesterday, and it continued on to this morning. After that, we heard from Nancy Jo Hancock. She's the woman who said, don't flatter yourself. I'll play the clip. She went out with Charles Vallow the night before he was killed and went on a date with him. They had met through a website, through a dating service online, and they went out together. And you'll hear from her coming up here in just a minute. We have Christina Atwood. Christina was a member of Lori's LDS congregation and actually went to a couple of gatherings that Lori held, including where they casted the evil spirits out of Charles. And she actually confronted Lori about what Lori was doing, and also the fact that Lori was crushing up JJ's medication into Charles's drinks and trying to kill him, it sounds like. So we'll hear from her in a minute. We'll, of course, we'll remember Charles, and we will take your questions. We'll do a couple shout outs, and we will talk about where you're watching from. We're having people all over the world watch this broadcast, which is pretty amazing. I want to begin by just kind of walking through what happened today. So Lori began the day right away, right off the top, with the jurors coming in. We didn't lose any jurors, so thank goodness for that. And she started asking questions about the shooting and if the detective Coons was there at the scene when Charles was shot. Of course he wasn't, but here's the line of questioning that Lori began her today with. One moment. Sorry, I need to bring up my volume. I don't think you could hear it. Let me know if you could hear it or not. Okay, let me see if we have it now. Okay, I'm seeing it on my... Can you all hear that? Let me know if you can hear that or not. If you can't, I'm going to unplug this button. I don't think we can. Let me get this to just restart here, and I'll play that for you. Detective Coons, you'll recall, he was the one that testified yesterday all about the... just one second here. Desktop. Save. Okay. He's the one that testified yesterday about responding to the scene and the gun trajectory of the bullets, how they were lodged into the ground there at the house, into the baseboard, how there was a bullet lodged into the floor too. We saw that yesterday. There was a bullet that was there. Did you hear that? Okay, I think we have that. I apologize. He really went on to testify about how he believed Charles was standing up when he was shot, that Alex shot him with the baseball bat, the hat in the house, all of that. He laid it all out yesterday with the evidence that we talked about. If you missed it, you'll want to go back and watch. And the diagram that they had in the house, and then the camera that was on the pole that was able to spin around the room and show exactly what was played there. So what we're going to do is... play you this clip now, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to call Jordan, and he's going to walk us through how to get this to work. So here we go. Cross your fingers. You ready? Let's see if we can hear it. Can you hear it? Okay, I don't think you can hear it. I can hear it, but I don't think you can hear it. Am I right? Okay, give me 1 minute. I apologize. I'm going to put this standby on, and we're going to get this working for you. It's going to be worth it. Okay, count to 100, and I'll be back.
Were you aware, Detective, that my husband and my brother were very good friends?
No, ma'am, I didn't know the relationship.
Did you know that they hung out and played golf together?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I'm going somewhere with this.
Well, I guess.
My follow-up question will explain.
I guess you can answer if you knew that they played golf. I did not know.
In all of your investigation of my life, you never came across this information?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Are you familiar with my husband's wishes for his funeral?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Did you learn in your investigation that he named my brother Alex as one of his 5 best friends?
And I'm going to object again to relevance.
Sustained.
Did you read the reports in this case?
I did not read all of the reports in this case. No, I've read mine and have authored mine, but I have not read the other reports.
None of the other reports except for your own?
That's correct.
Okay. If someone very muscular like my husband were 2 to 4 feet away from you holding up a bat, would you consider that a threat?
And I'm going to object to speculation, relevance.
Your Honor, I'm asking for his opinion as a professional and as a... If someone very muscular like my husband were 2 to 4 feet away from you holding up a bat, would you consider that a threat?
And I'm going to object to speculation, relevance.
Your Honor, I'm asking for his opinion as a professional and as a firearms expert.
He's not, okay.
That goes to the ultimate
hold on.
decision.
The objection is sustained and it calls for a legal conclusion.
It calls for a legal conclusion?
Yes, move on.
Were you present, Detective, when my husband was shot?
No, ma'am.
Is there a video recording of it?
To my knowledge, no.
So is your opinion then an educated guess about what really happened?
It's based.
Okay, we're just going to start over, everybody. Welcome to Courtroom Insider. It's Wednesday night. Friday's almost here. Thursday's almost here. My computer, I won't go into it, but when I go into the courtroom, I have to turn down certain stuff and turn up certain stuff. Okay, so here's the intro. Back to where we're at. Thank you for your patience. Sorry for the standby. This is Lori questioning Detective Coons. You ready? Are you sure you're ready? Here we go.
If someone very muscular like my husband were 2 to 4 feet away from you holding up a bat, would you consider that a threat?
And I would object to speculation, relevance.
Your Honor, I'm asking for his opinion as a professional and as a firearms expert.
He's not, okay.
That goes to the ultimate
hold on.
decision.
The objection is sustained and it calls for a legal conclusion.
It calls for a legal conclusion?
Yes, move on.
Were you present, Detective, when my husband was shot?
No, ma'am.
Is there a video recording of it?
To my knowledge, no.
So is your opinion then an educated guess about what really happened?
It's based on known facts.
Okay. Were you aware, Detective, that my husband and my brother were very good friends?
No, ma'am, I didn't know the relationship.
Did you know that they hung out and played golf together?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I'm going somewhere with this.
Well, I
My
guess,
follow-up question will explain.
I guess you can answer if you knew that they played golf.
I did not know.
In all of your investigation of my life, you never came across this information?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Are you familiar with my husband's wishes for his funeral?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Did you learn in your investigation that he named my brother Alex as one of his 5 best friends?
And I'm going to object again to relevance.
Sustained.
Did you read the reports in this case?
I did not read all of the reports in this case. No, I've read mine and have authored mine, but I have not read the other reports.
None of the other reports except for your own?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that was the line of questioning, the tone of the line of questioning that continued. Then we went on to this wound that the detective noticed in Charles. And Lori was insinuating, wondering if the fabric on the shirt that Charles was wearing could have maybe caused the wound. I think that's where she was going. It's called a sword wound, and the detective explains it. Lori was saying that Charles was wearing a $200 shirt, and I think it was a $200 specialty shirt, and that Lori was insinuating somehow that maybe this shirt could have contributed to the wound or caused the wound. Here was her questioning about that.
Can you explain to us what the sword wound is that you explained in your report?
Yes, a sword wound would be a wound created as an exit wound where the projectile is exiting the body and the body is either up against a firm surface or firm material like spandex type thing. That's how it's been explained to me.
Okay. That's fair. You said held in place by tight clothing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you, in fact, and it says in your report, did you, in fact, collect my husband's clothing?
Yes.
Okay. And you took the clothing, it says, to the property storage facility. Is that correct?
Yes, it went to a drying cage.
Okay. Detective, are you familiar with bamboo clothing?
I can't say that I am.
Okay. Were you aware that on July 29th, 2019, my husband was wearing a $200 bamboo workout shirt?
Objection, relevance.
He can answer if he knows.
I have no idea what the cost is.
Are you aware that bamboo is a heavy-duty fabric, not to rip or tear except under extreme conditions?
I've not done any research into bamboo fabric.
Okay. So could this fabric of his shirt have caused the wound to be short?
It could have been a contributor, but it would not have been in this particular case.
Why so?
The body would have been on the floor where the bullet defect was in the floor.
So you just said in your report earlier that a short wound could be caused by tight clothing. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you're saying that could not have happened in this case?
The shirt did not appear to be tight clothing to me.
Well, it was made of bamboo, as we established, right? Is that correct?
I am taking your word for it. I do not know that it's a bamboo shirt.
Okay. And you did not investigate that at all?
No, ma'am.
But you had the shirt in your possession?
It was seized as evidence, yes.
And you never checked what kind of fabric it was?
No, ma'am.
And you never checked if that could be a possibility?
No, ma'am.
And you knew that spandex was kind of a material that could make that kind of short mark that you just mentioned, correct?
It would have to be super tight clothing.
Super tight clothing?
Yes.
Or a fabric that's even stronger than the spandex that you mentioned?
The strength of the fabric, I don't believe, has a huge play in it unless it is form-fitting and compressing the skin, much like a hard surface or firm surface would.
Okay. But what you said in your report was that held in place by tight clothing could cause a short wound.
As has been explained to me, yes.
Okay.
There's a lot to say about that, but we'll just move on. We'll move on to the markings that were in the floor. Remember yesterday, the jurors saw and felt, they actually passed along, or maybe it was this morning when they felt the actual piece of the wooden floor where the bullet went into the ground. And Lori asks if the floor was tested for projectiles. And no, they weren't, the detective said, because the projectile was in the floor. Like, they had the projectile there. They had those things, so they didn't really need to test them because they had them. So it was this morning. I apologize. It was this morning when they actually showed the floor to the jury, the piece of the floor. And then on the projector, Lori pulled up the actual floor picture that showed where the bullet went into the floor and there was a little dent. And then she tries to compare that defect to the other defect in the floor. And here's how that went.
In exhibit, detective,
I'm looking.
this, where my pin is pointing,
Yes, ma'am?
that's the defect that you're referring to where the bullet struck. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And these defects were already previously at the residence. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And do they look that much significantly different than that to you?
Yes, they do.
What do you think the measurement difference in that is, in your professional opinion?
There is no scale on this photograph. It would be difficult for me to give you an estimate.
So in your estimation, this defect is much larger than this defect. Is that correct?
The second defect you're pointing to appears to be wood grain indentations. The other is an actual defect in the board.
Okay. Thank you. But this defect, this piece of wood that was cut out, was not tested. Is that correct?
Again, asked and answered.
Technically correct, but I'll let him answer.
Correct. To my knowledge, it was not tested.
Thank you. So do you know, detective, for a fact that the defect on my wood floor was caused by the second bullet?
And again, I'm going to object to asked and answered.
Sustained.
When we looked at the projectiles yesterday, the one from the baseboard clearly had white paint on it from the baseboard. Is that correct?
Baseboard or the drywall, perhaps.
Okay, but we all saw the white paint. Is that correct?
There was a white marking on it.
Was that tested for the white paint?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
There was no decision made to have it tested.
Because it was logical that it was in the baseboard where the baseboard was painted white, right?
It was very clear that it had passed through your husband and lodged in the baseboard. And upon recovery, there was no deformation to it, indicating that it was a straight-on impact or relatively close so that it embedded itself into the baseboard.
Correct. So It wasn't tested because it really didn't need to be, in your opinion.
Correct.
Okay. That's fair.
Okay, notice the judge told her yesterday to quit adding testimony to her questions. Like, correct, that's fair. Lori obviously is somewhat listening, I guess, not so much on other questions. We then go on to the questions about who really may have fired the gun. And Lori's asking, was gunshot residue? Where did you do tests on Alex's hands, on my hands, on Tylee's hands? Were you there to witness who actually shot my husband? And here's how that questioning went.
Are you hands were swabbed for gunshot residue?
There would have been no reason to swab for gunshot residue.
Why is that?
He had already stated that he was the shooter.
He had stated it?
To my knowledge, that's how the information was provided to me.
Okay. Are you aware if my hands were swabbed for gunshot residue?
I am not.
Okay. Are you aware if my daughter's hands were swabbed for gunshot residue?
I am not.
Do you know for a fact that Alex shot the gun in question?
Based on the information provided, that is what I have, yes.
Do you know that for a fact?
Just with the information that's been provided, I can't tell you one way or another if there's another shooter because the evidence does not show that there was.
Okay. So all you really know for sure, after your 5 years of investigation, is that my husband was shot 2 times, 1 by that particular gun, 2 with those particular bullets, at my residence, and that he passed away as a result of that. Would that be correct?
Oversimplified, there is a lot more information that is available to us for that.
Is that correct? Is that question correct?
Those are some known facts, yes, but that is not all we know.
So you can't really tell me for sure who shot him, can you?
Well, as we've established, I was not present when it happened. I can only go with the facts of what people have said and what the evidence shows.
Okay. You don't really know what time he was shot, do you?
Actually, no, I don't.
Okay. You don't really know if he was falling back or lying supine on the floor, do you?
Yes, I do.
You don't really know what time my husband actually passed away, do you?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Thank you. No more questions.
So after that, Trina K gets up to do redirect, and she made the point that, and pulled out a tape measure, actually, and said, based on the projections and everything, how far away was the shooter from Charles Vallow? 2 to 2.5 feet. And in the house, she would have said, okay, if Charles was standing here based on where his body fell, it was not moved, that based on where it fell, and where the shooter was standing, where would the shooter have been? And she kind of mapped it out and showed the jurors with the map and pictures of the home where the shooter, where Alex Cox would have been. She also made the point that if he fired the gun in the air, it's going to get lodged, the bullet's going to get lodged in the ceiling or perhaps a wall. It's not going to go up and then come back down and go into the baseboard. And that Charles was indeed standing when he was shot based on how the bullet, for the first shot, based on how it went into his heart. And then on the second shot, he was down on the ground when it went through his left shoulder and lodged into the floor. Well, then we had the next witness, and it was Nancy Jo Hancock. This is a witness we have not heard from in the Idaho trials. This was a lady, a mother of 5, 15 grandchildren, LDS. She met on a dating website she's divorced, with Charles Vallow, met on July 3rd of 2019. Charles died on the 11th. And she said they hit it off. They were texting, they were calling, they had multiple conversations over 3 hours long. She said Charles was such a gentleman, funny, charming, kind, great to talk to. And she said he just had a really good Southern accent. And Charles said, I'm coming to town. He was living in Houston at the time. She lives in the Phoenix area. And he said, can we have dinner? She said, great. So they arranged to have dinner the night before Charles died. Of course, they didn't know he was going to die on the 11th. They went to dinner on the 10th. Now, Charles had been telling Nancy Jo about his marriage and that he was going through a divorce and that it was messy and that his wife was saying all sorts of crazy stuff. Nancy Jo, being LDS, realized that some of the teachings, some of the things Lori was saying she'd never heard of and were just flat out crazy. They go to dinner on the 10th, on July 10th. They go to dinner and they stay until the restaurant closes. And then they go talk by her truck for like an hour. So here, and Trina Kay set this all up with her testifying about her interactions with Charles. Here's a little bit of what she says that he told her about his divorce and life insurance.
As you and Charles are talking and texting, just sort of yes or no, can you tell us, did he get very detailed about his life with you?
Yes.
Did you know if Charles had children?
Yes.
Just yes or no again, did you talk to him about his wife specifically?
A lot.
Did he mention his wife by name?
Yes.
What did you believe his wife's name was?
Lori Vallow?
Have you ever met Lori Vallow?
No.
Again, just sort of yes or no. Did Charles talk to you about why? Objection. Leading?
Objection.
I haven't heard the question yet. Go ahead.
So just yes or no. Did Charles talk to you about why he
Leading
was
is yes or no.
No, leading is a question that suggests the answer. So she can answer yes or no.
So again, just yes or no. Did Charles talk to you about why he was separated from his wife?
Yes.
Based upon your discussions, how long did you think there had been issues going on between Charles and his wife?
For several months, but more intensely since the beginning of that year was 2019, so since the beginning of that year.
You told us that Charles talked to you in, well, let me ask you, yes or no, did he talk to you in great detail about his relationship with Lori Vallow?
Yes.
She went on to say that I mentioned the religious beliefs, and also she found it funny because Charles was on this app and he said that other women were hitting him up, sending him scantily clad photos, then asking to go out, asking for money, things like that. She made it clear that they were not exclusive, and she made it clear that they were dating other people, they were seeing other people. He was really excited to see JJ when he was coming into town. And what really struck Nancy Jo is how kind Charles spoke about Lori. She said most exes are bitter toward their spouse and they speak negatively, especially men, and they just have this anger in their heart for them. But Charles didn't. He wanted Lori to be a good mom. He wanted the best for her. And she said she was really impressed with how kind he was and how much he loved JJ. Here's a little bit of what she said.
Based upon everything you had heard, was Charles coming in to see you, or was there some other reason he was in Arizona?
Charles was ecstatic to see JJ. He was coming to see JJ, so excited to take him to school the next morning. He was also coming to look for a place to live. He had an appointment to meet a realtor friend after he had taken JJ to school. And then he was also supposed to meet with Lori's brother, Adam.
So you and Charles have this evening on the 10th. Were you going to meet again?
Yeah, we were supposed to meet up in the late afternoon after he got through with the things that I just said.
So did you have a set time for the next day?
Mm-mm.
Can Can you describe Charles? Was he a fit man? What was his size?
Very fit and into physical fitness. And while we were talking, I know that he was swimming. I got to go to the gym, and yeah, very, very fit, strong.
When you were talking with Charles on July 10th, that evening, let me ask first, do you recall about what time you ended up meeting him?
It was around 7. I got there first, and but it was right around 7, between 7 and 7:15, I'd say.
And do you recall about how long you guys were together until you finally
Well, the
left?
restaurant closed at 10, and they were closed, and no one else was there. So it was after that we left, and then, like I said, we stood by my truck and talked for another half hour, 45 minutes after that.
So a later evening.
Yes.
Can you tell us, you said that you understood he was going to go see his son. What was his demeanor about with regards to JJ and seeing his son?
Like a kid on Christmas morning, he was very excited to see JJ.
Like a kid on Christmas morning, he was very excited to see JJ. The next day, he goes to pick JJ up. He's killed. Nancy texted him around 11-ish, I think she said, and said, "How did it go? How was it to see JJ?" No response. Thought it was a little odd. Called him a few hours later. No answer. She was confused. She didn't know what was going on. They had had a great night. She thought they hit it off. She's like, I must have misread this guy completely. I'm not hearing anything from him. December, 6 months later, she's watching the news, and on comes Charles Vallow, and her jaw hit the floor. She could not believe this was her date. And she just was shocked with it. So then it came time to Lori to question Nancy Jo. And boy, was she fiery. I'm going to play an extended clip of the back and forth with Lori and Nancy Jo, who very much remained composed. Remember, Lori's upset that Nancy Jo went on a date with her husband, even though they were still legally married, even though Charles had said, I'm going to divorce her. There's no way out. We're done. The only way out is divorce. While Lori is having the affair with Chad and has been since the previous fall, October of 2018. This is now July, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. She's had this affair 9 months, and she's gone to Hawaii for 72 days and abandoned JJ, basically took off, and is doing all this stuff behind the scenes. And now Lori is upset that this woman has gone on a date with her husband. And this was fascinating to watch. Here you go.
And you stated that your husband, or my husband, told you that he was going through a divorce. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you have any way to verify that?
No, I didn't try to verify that.
Okay. So did it surprise you later to find out that we were not in the process of a divorce?
Charles was in the process of a divorce.
He was not in the process of a divorce. Did it surprise you to find that out? You've seen it all on TV where we're not getting divorced.
Okay.
So on the website that you met him, did he say he was divorced?
I'm not certain.
Would you have gone on a date with him if he would have said he was married?
If I would have realized how married he still was, maybe not. But I just met for dinner. I wasn't sleeping with him or anything.
Do you go on dates with married men? Not naturally?
Argumentative. I'm going to also object under 611 for harassment.
All right. I'll sustain the objection.
Your Honor, do I not have a right to cross-examine this witness for what she has already testified to?
You can cross-examine her about what she's testified to.
So you did go on a date with a married man,
I went on a date with Charles.
but you did not know he was married.
I knew his divorce was not final.
His divorce was not started.
Okay.
Okay. So in your text messages, you asked Charles if he was a good kisser. Is that correct?
Maybe, sure.
Did he answer that text message?
I'm
gonna
sure.
object to
I'm sure he did.
relevance. Again, 611 harassment.
I'll sustain the objection for relevance and hearsay.
So are you trying to tell me and this jury that you went on one date with my husband and he told you all the details of our lives?
I'm telling you the truth, and that's what I know.
So you spent your whole date getting to know each other, talking about me.
Don't flatter yourself. No, we did not spend the whole time talking about you.
You knew a lot about me, right?
I knew what I've testified to.
What else did you talk about on your date?
Lots of things.
Like what, for instance?
Life, kids, the church, lots of things.
Okay. Did he tell you about anything about our other 4 children?
Yes,
So you knew that we did have 5 children as well?
I did.
Okay. Did he talk to you about my daughter Tylee?
He did.
Did he talk about his relationship with her?
I don't recall that.
Did he talk about the contention in his relationship with my daughter Tylee?
I don't recall that.
I'm sure you don't.
And I'm going to object to comments by the defendant made after questions, testifying.
I'll sustain the objection.
On your date, you talked about my husband was a life insurance salesman. Is that correct?
I knew he did something with money and insurance, but I really didn't know the details of what he did for work. Like I said, I don't ask the details about what someone does for work when I'm trying to get to know someone.
But you knew that he sold life insurance. You stated that.
I believe that I had a vague understanding that he did something with insurance.
And then he brought that up again at dinner.
No, we didn't talk about his work at dinner.
I thought you said you did talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said you did talk about that he changed the life insurance policy at dinner.
Well, you were asking me if we talked about that he sold insurance, which that didn't happen. But yes, he did tell me that he changed the beneficiary of his life insurance policy at dinner.
Did he tell you how much his life insurance policy was for?
Yes, he did.
What did he say?
$1 million.
Did he tell you how much my life insurance policy was for?
I do not recall.
You don't recall?
We didn't talk about you very much in that vein.
When did you talk to him about me very much then? If it wasn't at dinner, was it in your text messages?
We were talking about what he was going through in the process of separating from you, not about what your life insurance policy was worth. And we talked about you on the phone, and when I say you, meaning what he was doing as he was going through this separation.
So let me understand. You were dating some different men on this website, right? From the websites.
Sure.
Would you say it was common for men to be talking so much about their supposed ex-wives during their conversations with a potential?
It's actually very common.
Really?
Really.
Interesting.
And again, Your Honor, I'm
right.
going to object to the defendant making comments after her questions. and
I'm
then
sorry, Your
strike-
Honor. I won't do that again.
All right, please stop.
I'll just ask the questions.
Thank you.
So there were some text messages between you and my husband after the dinner on July 10th. Is that correct?
Correct.
What time would those text messages have occurred?
After dinner,
What time?
10:45-ish.
10:45 to what?
I'm not certain, ma'am. After dinner.
10:45 to midnight, maybe?
I just told you I don't know. Maybe.
What did you discuss in those text messages?
And I'm going to object to relevance again. If there's a specific area.
Sustained.
You testified a minute ago that Charles told you a lot of things about his wife. You didn't say ex-wife, but you said wife. Is that correct?
Okay, sure.
What were a lot of things?
The things that I've testified to.
Can you be more specific?
Am I allowed to do a narrative then?
Let's go on sidebar.
So at this point, the judge, the prosecution, and the defense are all on headphones.
Please be seated. The jury is no longer present. The last question the defendant asked of the witness was along the lines of, what things did you discuss about me, meaning the defendant? Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
what I recall, Your Honor.
Are you sure you wanted to answer that question? Because you're opening up a really big door. If you want her to answer the question, I'll have her answer the question.
How am I supposed to know what a lot of things are?
All right. If you want her to answer the question and there's no objection from the state, we'll
No
bring
objection.
the jury back in and have her answer the question.
Notice how Trina K said no objection. Let her answer the question. What type of things did you talk about me? What a question. And what an answer it would have been. The judge said, okay, bring the jury back in. And then Lori said, I'm going to need a lot of time for this witness. And the judge said, okay, we're going to take a lunch break. It was noon. So talk about a cliffhanger. Everyone is anxious for when after lunch to have that question answered. And guess what? She didn't ask it. She didn't ask the question. We came back after lunch, but her line of fiery questioning still continued. It did not end with that. She went on to say how they texted. Lori went on to say how they texted. Or I'm sorry, Nancy Jo went on to again talk about the text messages to reemphasize some of the things she had testified to earlier. And that then, interestingly enough, a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, she ran into Adam Cox, Lori's brother, at a pickleball tournament. He teaches pickleball, and her grandson or grandchild was playing pickleball. And so she went up to introduce herself and said something about the fact that they're both part of this trial, but it wasn't a deep conversation. They didn't talk about their testimony or anything like that. But here's how Lori approached that line of questioning with Nancy Jo.
How did you know that was him?
Because I've seen him on media via the situation surrounding you.
So you initiated a conversation with him?
I just said hi, and he asked me who my grandson was, and I pointed it out, and that was the end of it.
So you introduced yourself to him? To my brother?
I don't know that I introduced myself, but maybe.
How would he know who you were?
I don't know that he knew who I was. I knew who he was.
So you went up and talked to him?
I did talk with him, yes.
He didn't call you over, so you went up and talked to him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when you were talking to him, you told him you were who?
I told him that my name was Nancy Jo Hancock.
And did he recognize that name from something?
Can I go back and change how I met your brother? I forgot this until right now. So on a dating app, your brother's picture came up on my dating app. And I sent him a message and said, but he had a different name that he used, not Adam. And so I just sent him a message and said if he was going to use someone else's pictures, he should probably pick someone different than Adam Cox. That's how I met him.
That's how you met my brother, Adam?
Correct.
Do you know what perjury is?
Absolutely.
Can I object, Your Honor, to
Question.
argumentative harassment?
Argumentative.
Do you know what perjury is? So I hope that made sense. Nancy Jo recalled that, I actually met him years ago or a while ago on a dating app. So she thought someone was using Adam's picture because he didn't have his name associated with the picture. She was obviously familiar with the news story and knew Charles Vallow, and so messaged him and said, if you're going to use someone's photo, you shouldn't use the name. You shouldn't use Adam Cox's. Lori continued on with the questioning. She brought up the fact that Nancy Jo had reached out to Kay Woodcock after when Nancy Jo realized that Kay Woodcock was Charles's brother and that Charles was dead. She reached out to her, I believe on Facebook or a text message, somehow reached out to express her condolences. And they had been in touch on and off. It sounded like sending a few messages over the years. By the way, Kay Woodcock was in court the entire time this was happening. And at one point just stared at Lori. And the jurors were really into this today. They were focused. They were watching the back and forth between, both of these women. Then Nancy Jo was asked about Brandon Boudreaux, if she'd ever met Brandon. She said that Brandon was actually in the same LDS congregation that her daughter was in, and that one time Brandon was at her daughter's home, I believe it was her daughter's home, or they were at the same home together. And her daughter said, that's Brandon. She said she doesn't remember if they spoke. She just was introduced to that's Brandon, maybe from afar or whatnot. Then the interesting thing was basically Nancy Jo testified that she said, Charles, if you want to get serious with a woman, including, someone like me, you need to divorce your wife. Like you can't, no one is going to want to go into a long-term serious relationship with you if you're still married to her, to Lori. And he knew it. He said, I know. And he said, I'm going to, this is it. I'm done. We're going to divorce. And that's what happened. That's what he said was going to happen. And then 12 hours later, he was dead. Less than 12 hours later. Last night on this earth, he spent with Nancy Jo Hancock, and none of them knew what was coming the next day. Here is when Lori rested. Trina did have some follow-up, and then the jury, there was a question from the jury, and the judge actually read the question. Nancy was kind of surprised. She goes, the jury gets to ask questions? Because, if you're not familiar with that system, you don't know, and she had not been told. But here's the question the judge asked, and listen to how Nancy responded. The judge asked on behalf of the jury.
Ever expressed to you verbally any indications of stress?
Definitely. He was very worried that
I think we'll just keep it with a yes/no answer for this question. Does the defense have follow-up based on that juror question? Does the defendant have follow-up based on that juror question?
No, Your Honor.
All right.
And that was the end of Nancy Jo's testimony. I want to pause here for a minute and mention something that I was not aware of until today. Apparently, many of you ladies think that Judge Boreski is quite attractive. And in fact, I guess people are calling him Judge McSteamy. And I didn't know this. And I learned about this because the woman sitting next to me on Media Row, I won't shout her out. Maybe I will. I'll wait and see. She's great. You might know who I'm talking about. She said, man, I don't mind the view where I'm at, because she's got a direct view of the judge, like, he is hot. But here's the interesting thing is that the way that things are in this court building, like I've said before, you see jurors when you're out getting lunch, whatever. You kind of run into these people. Today, I went down to for lunch, and I'm walking off the elevator, and there was the judge without his robe, and he's a very trendy dresser. I will say he was dressed quite nice underneath. And then this same woman's like, "Yeah, I almost ran into him with my coffee." Anyway, sorry. Side note about that. After the and you might agree, you can share your comments if you want. After the Nancy Jo Hancock, it was time for the next witness, and that witness was Christina Atwood, another witness we have not heard from. This is a woman that knew Lori. They met through church. They were in the same LDS ward in Arizona, and they became friends. In fact, after Charles and Lori moved to Hawaii, one time Christina and her family went and saw Lori. Charles wasn't there at the time. They went to Lori's home, and then a few days later, they went and played on the beach for a while. And Christina was interviewed by Detective Ron Ball, who's now the sheriff in Rexburg in Madison County, back in 2021. And that's 4 years ago. Think about 5 years ago. Would you remember some of these things? She often, during her testimony today, had to refer to that police interview to refresh her of what she said. And so Trina Kay would ask questions, and then Christina would say, I don't know if I can recall. And then Trina would say, do you need to listen to your testimony, or do you need to listen to your interview with the police to help refresh your memory? And she said yes. And so that's what happened. And she talked about meeting Lori. So they were friends. Then Lori moved back to Arizona with Charles, and then Lori invited her to a group meeting to come together, and this is where she started to hear about Charles being possessed, and met Alex and met these other people. Here is some of her testimony from today.
Did you hear Lori speak about Charles being possessed more than once?
Yes.
On more than one occasion?
Yes.
Did she tell you, as well as the other women who were at this meeting in February, that her husband was possessed?
Yes.
Okay. So it wasn't just you in a private conversation?
Correct.
She was open about it?
Yes.
When you would try to reach Lori, did she have multiple phone numbers that you could call?
Yes.
Do you recall if she had more than 2 phones?
I know 2 cell phones.
Okay. And did she also potentially have a third line? A third phone number that might have been a home number?
Yes.
Okay. So at least 2 different cell phones that you could call her?
Yes.
Was she working at the time?
Not that I recall.
Did you know her to work?
No.
Did Lori ever talk to you about casting?
Yes.
What did you understand that to mean?
It was praying for dark spirits to be cast out of someone.
Were you ever involved in a casting for her husband?
I was in her presence when she prayed for that.
Were you ever present when people were assigned different elements to be part of the casting?
I don't recall.
Was the last time you all got together on June 9th of 2019?
Yes.
And you said that was at Zulema's house as well?
Yes.
Who invited you to that?
I don't recall.
Who was at the meeting?
It's the first time I'd ever met Alex, her brother. Zulema was there. I believe her niece, Melanie Boudreau, was there. Nicole Earle and Melanie Gibb. And there was another woman that was a friend of one of the ladies, but I can't recall her name.
Okay. So was this the first time you met Melanie Boudreau?
No, I'd met her another time.
And do you recall when that was?
That was at Alex's house, I believe.
Was that one of the two
In
meetings?
between those two, the first and the last, I believe there was 3 meetings.
Okay. And you said it was the first time you met Alex Cox.
Correct.
How did you learn he was related to Lori?
He was introduced to me.
Okay. As her brother?
Yes.
Can you tell us your impression of Alex Cox? What was the impression you got from meeting him and being with him for a night?
I was put off by it.
Why?
He was pretty loud and outspoken, I guess. And I was very uncomfortable with what he was talking about.
Okay. Well, let's kind of go through what happened at this meeting. At this meeting, did Lori still express that her husband, Charles, was possessed?
Yes.
And what were you guys, what was happening at this meeting? I know you said there was a prayer. What was happening?
We were asked to fast and pray for her family, and so we'd come together fasting, and we, as I recall, gathered outside and had a prayer together. And I believe Lori was the one that said the prayer. And then we went in and broke our fasts and ate and then visited.
Okay. Was Alex part of that prayer outside?
Yes.
Okay. During this, when you broke your fast and you guys were eating, did you hear Alex making some comments?
Yes.
And you told us that they made you uncomfortable. What were these comments?
He stated he wished that he could just kill Charles.
Okay. Was Lori around when he was saying this?
Yes, one of the times.
Okay. So he said it more than once.
Yes.
Can you describe for us part of his demeanor when he's saying this about wanting to just kill Charles?
It was jocular, just as I recall, he was standing up and just talking about it pretty loudly.
And you said one of the times that he said this, it was around Lori.
Yes.
Did she react in any way to hearing her brother say that he wished she could just kill her husband?
Not that I recall.
Did you overhear Lori ever tell him, "You can't kill my husband"?
No.
Or why would you say such a thing like that?
No.
Did it seem to have any impact that you recall on her?
No.
Now, you were disturbed by this,
Yes.
but you didn't see that same reaction in her.
Correct.
What did you think when you heard this?
It was upsetting.
And so you've already heard Lori talking for at least a couple months about her husband being possessed, right?
Yes.
Inhabited by these dark, evil spirits, right?
Yes.
And now you're hearing her brother say that he wished he could just kill him.
Yes.
And this is on June 9th of 2019.
Yes.
During this same gathering on June 9th of 2019, did you hear Lori Vallow say anything about Charles that was also disturbing to you?
Yes.
What did you hear her say?
I heard her say that she had crushed up some of JJ's medicine and put it in his drink mix.
Did it sound like a significant amount of medication?
Yes.
When you heard this, what were you thinking?
I was disturbed.
So you're thinking now she's drugging her husband?
Yes.
Alex have any reaction to this?
Not that I recall.
So when you are hearing these sort of things, did you say anything at that time?
I didn't.
Did you stay much longer at this gathering?
No.
Did you decide to do anything as a result of having heard Alex make those statements about killing Charles and Lori making statements about drugging her husband?
Yes.
What did you decide to do?
I reached out and asked her to visit with me.
And when was that?
I believe the next day.
So June 10th?
Yes,
And did you meet with her?
I did.
And what did you tell her?
I told her I was very concerned about what had been said and that it was really disturbing. And I told her that if something had happened to Charles, that I would go to the police.
And how did she react to that?
She said that they were just being silly and just playing off of each other and that she hadn't meant anything by it. She's just being dramatic.
Did she also give you a sort of a lesser dose of drugs that she was drugging?
Yes, she said that she hadn't given as many as she had suggested the day before.
So minimized what she said.
Yes.
Okay, so many of you noticed, if you were watching today, that there was a 20-minute audio blip in Christina's testimony. That was across the board. Something happened with the court TV equipment, and we have the audio now. We have the entire testimony. It's on our YouTube channel. I put it up about 2 hours ago. So if you are watching and you want to hear her entire testimony, you can go listen. Also, and there's no audio blip. So if you haven't listened and you were into it, and there's some fascinating stuff. She went on to talk about that when Charles died, when he was shot in July, after she confronted Lori, she wasn't invited to these gatherings anymore. She was invited to a lunch a few months later in August. But when Charles died, she had heard it was a brother-in-law. She didn't realize it was Alex until months later, and that's when she went to the police. Lori had no questions for Christina. Nothing. Which was fascinating that she had nothing to say. And court got out early because I think they were expecting Lori to take up the time and cross-examine her, but she didn't. So again, you can go watch all the testimony from Christina, all the testimony from Nancy Jo. So many of you are asking me to interview Nancy Jo. I will if she says yes. If you know Nancy Jo, tell her to reach out to me. I'm easy to find. I'd love to sit down with her and have an unedited conversation for all of you to hear. And I will even, take your questions and ask them to her too. I think it would be great to converse with her and talk about, everything. A lot of talk today about Charles and JJ, especially when Nancy Jo got choked up, about how excited Charles was to see JJ. Here's JJ with his service dog, and Charles couldn't wait to see him. And here's a wonderful picture of him teaching JJ how to ride a bike with his helmet on. And sadly, they're not together here, but hopefully they're reunited somewhere. And we remember and honor Charles and JJ tonight, who this whole trial is unfortunately all about. And so we hope for justice, and that's why every night we try to do Courtroom Insider to take a minute and remember them. Okay, we have several shout outs and we have several questions. Before I get to that, I do want to acknowledge our sponsor, Alan Browning from Browning Law, an attorney, a law firm based in Idaho Falls, Idaho. They're sponsoring Courtroom Insider. We appreciate their support and all they do to help us so that we can bring this program to you every night so that I can be here in Arizona. Otherwise, I, have to be home, not covering this. Here are some shout outs. We have Kelly Anderson, Ty Bond, Robin Booton, Michael Chambers, Becky Martin, Tim Fiddlephone. Tim Fiddlephone. I love that name, Tim. There was more to that, I think, Peggy. What did Tim want? You'll have to remind me. I think Tim sent me a message. Tim, I don't remember what your message was. Donna Rupert, Elizabeth Wells from Connecticut, watches faithfully with Rhonda Allen in Virginia. What part of Virginia? Lived in Richmond for 6 years. Love Virginia. Louise Evans, Janine Tonkins, and Barbie Hernandez. Good to see you all. We have people watching from all over the place. I know we have watchers in Arizona. I've met so many of you over the past few days. It's been great to see you. Sheridan, Wyoming, Henderson, North Carolina, Hendersonville, North Carolina, Zurich, Switzerland, Heber, Arizona. Where's Heber? York, Pennsylvania, Victor, Idaho, Melbourne, Australia. Good to see you all. It was 104 degrees here today, guys. It was warm, and it's so nice, though, and I'm loving it. Let me get to your questions. Joyce, did Lori show expression when Nancy testified? Well, we heard expression. Sadly, the cameras, we only see the back of her head, so I couldn't see her face. But Nancy kept it calm. I'm sure Lori had a lot of expression on her face, but again, I couldn't see. And the only one who can really see is the judge and the witness, and the jurors can too from the side. As if Alex had done CPR, wouldn't there be blood on his hands? Kathy says. Great point, Kathy. The question about that was kind of brought up from the testimony of the other witnesses the past few days, that normally if someone's been shot and someone has CPR, they're spewing up blood, there's a bloody scene, there's something about blood, and there was none of that with Charles, or with Alex. Yeah, his hands were clean. There could have been blood elsewhere in the home. There could have been, especially if he was attacked too, but the only blood was the pool beneath Charles and then a little bit on the tap in the kitchen. Nancy Jo was on fire. Can you try to land an interview with her? From Angela. I think that would be great. I'd love to talk with Nancy Jo. I did kind of try to catch her eye as she was leaving the courtroom, and she kind of nodded at me. I don't know if she knew who I was or if I was just some weirdo trying to catch her eye, but regardless, yeah, I'd love to talk with her. Matt says, I was a cameraman years ago and all the violence and sadness of the news started to get to me. How are all of you handling the third year of the Daybell's trial? Not only must you deal with this darkness, but so many other stories. How do you deal with this and not take it home to your families? There is a lot of violence. There's a lot of sadness of news. I kind of talked about this yesterday. There's also a lot of goodness and a lot of hope and a lot of really wonderful people. And that is honestly how I get through these trials. But please, I mean, the police go through this every day. The prosecution team, the people that see these bodies. I'm here reporting, and it can be physically and emotionally and mentally draining. But there's so many people who go through so much worse. So yeah, I'm not asking for anybody to feel bad, but I will say, this morning I was exhausted. I didn't sleep well. Got up, went for a run, got to the courthouse, went down there with Jordan, and it's just like the kind people, like many of you, that come up and say hi, that want to talk, that say that you follow our work, our reporting at East Idaho News, and just makes it happy. So thank you. We're doing this all for you. I have a question no one seemed to notice about Alex. This is from Linda. Lori said in her opening statement that Alex was awakened by the shouting and came out of the bedroom, pulling up his jeans and shirtless. I listened 2 times to make sure I heard it correctly. You did. She did say something about that, the jeans and shirtless. Yet, how did he end up with the sunglasses on his head? That's the question. Something I'd never thought of before. It was asked. So something in that 40-minute period, did he go in and out of the house? Did he put on his sunglasses? Did he leave the home and come back? All of that is a good question. We'll never know. There weren't cameras. Would have been amazing if there had been a cell phone or a Ring doorbell camera at that house, just to see what that would have shown. My question is, in all the melee that led to the horrible shooting, how did Alex manage to get on a t-shirt and not get blood from his head wound on it? Great follow-up question. Whether it was self-defense or not, a lot was happening in a short time, according to the defense. All police videos show the t-shirt just gray, even not much sweat. Thoughts? The witnesses were asked about that yesterday by Trina Kay. Was Alex sweating? Was he bloody? Did he appear frantic? Did he appear stressed? Did he appear any of that? No. They said he was very nonchalant. He was chill. There wasn't any sweat on him. There wasn't any, sweat off of his forehead or whatever. He was just very casual, like, a pizza was there with him, but also dabbing his head with the paper towel from where he was apparently hit. Do we know if jurors are members of the same church that Lori was? Kiana asks. We don't know. They don't ask their religious preferences. They did ask in jury selection, they did mention that there will be talk of religious aspects. In fact, Trina did say the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Do any of you have strong opinions for or against the church? And none of them did. I don't know the population of LDS in Maricopa County yet Mormon, LDS versus non-LDS, Mormon versus non-Mormon. But I would think there'd be one or two on the jury. If there's not, then they surely know of members of the church. It's possible for Chad to be watching the trial, Stevie asks. I strongly doubt it. They don't get like court TV. They don't get internet in the prison on death row. I bet if it was on like NBC, like a mainstream channel, they could possibly, but I don't think they do. Did Nancy Jo have any sort of legal background? She was very aware of the legal system, it appeared. Michelle asked that. I don't know. I don't know really anything about Nancy Jo other than today one of you or a few of you did some research and sent me some information. You found that she was a very strong family woman, that she, was actively involved in the community with her family, but I don't know much more than that. Will East Idaho News be making t-shirts out of bamboo? Ha ha, Rye the guy. I don't think so, especially if they're $200 t-shirts. We're not going to charge you $200 for a t-shirt. But I say this every night, tomorrow or maybe Friday, if we do an episode of Courtroom Insider, I'm debating whether to do one on Friday because there shouldn't be court, although there might be an extra hearing we're hearing about with Lori. So if there is, we'll for sure do one. But I have so many photos you all have sent me wearing our East Idaho News shirts. So thank you. I'll show you some of those later this week. Jennifer says, do more people attend the trial than there are seats? On day one, yes. Today there were some extra seats, probably maybe 5 to 10 extra seats. But once it's full, it's full. And there wasn't an issue today. There might be tomorrow. I don't know. Are the witnesses on standby to be called back later to testify? The judge just dismisses them without any questions. I noticed that as well, and I will have to find that out. In Idaho, the judge would say, can they be released from their subpoena? I would imagine that they are still under their subpoena the duration of the trial, and so I would assume that they have to be on standby in case Lori wants to call them back, but maybe they don't during the defense portion, but maybe they don't. If you're a legal person in Arizona, message me and let me know. Did they check anyone's hands for gun residue? Chrissy asks. We talked about that earlier. They did not. Why aren't we allowed to hear the jury questions? Well, it depends on the judge. If the judge believes that the question is relevant and both sides agree it's relevant and should be asked, we hear it. If not, we don't. We did hear one today. Kelly, why did the police not start CPR on Charles when they arrived? Surely they should have started it even though Alex wasn't doing something, was not doing it. They are trained to know if someone is deceased or not. They are not trained to know. Well, he said when he got there that it was clear that Charles was dead. He testified about that. You can go watch the testimony, and that he had been dead for a little bit of time, and that's why he didn't do well. But you're right. The paramedics did do CPR, and they arrived there. So I don't remember his exact testimony. I don't want to guess too. So go back and watch and see why he was asked about it. I just don't remember the answer. Sean T, I'm very interested in going to CrimeCon. I've been looking it all up. If I go, I'll probably go by myself. Do you think that is safe? Oh, yeah, it's safe, Shanti. It's safe. CrimeCon sounds morbid, maybe, sounds weird, sounds like there might be mass murders running around. It's not like that. It's prosecutors, it's defense attorneys, it's journalists like me. I'm going to be there, and I can't wait to tell you what I'm going to be doing for one of the panels. It's not announced yet, but when I tell you, I hope you'll come. I hope you'll be there if you can. It can be pricey for some of you. If you use the promo code Eaton, E-A-T-O-N, I shouldn't say for some of you. There is a fee. And the speakers are not paid. We're not paid. They do cover our lodging and they do cover our flights. And they bring in tons of speakers. And it's just fascinating if you're into true crime. But if you use E-A-T-O-N as the promo code, that'll get you 10% off a standard badge. Is there anything someone like me should know who's never been to like that before? Just you're going to go and have fun, and you'll see the schedule, look at past years, the agendas, and you can get an idea. Do they have food vendors there, or will I have to go off-site to eat? I believe they're in the. I've never been to this resort where they're holding it, this hotel, but in the past they have. They've had all sorts of food vendors. Nate speaks about a trial for Brandon Boudreau. What trial? Could he clarify that? Yes, Brandon Boudreau is Lori's former nephew-in-law. He was driving home from the gym when he was shot at by Alex Cox. He survived. He was not hit. And now Lori's charged with conspiring to commit his murder. Brandon was on the dark list. Brandon was married to Melanie Boudreau. Brandon's trial is set for the first 2 weeks of June. and I'll be back here to cover it. That's the last Daybell trial. Ray, I'm not sure if it's come out in the courtroom whether Charles was shot standing up for the first shot from Alex. It came out today. If you go back and listen, it was clarified that he was standing up when he was shot. Can you clarify if Charles was shot both times while lying on the floor? No, he was shot once standing, he fell to the ground, and then was shot again, according to the witnesses. Does a jury know that Adam is dead? And if not, will they be told? Yes, Lori told them that her brother is no longer alive, that he passed away. They don't know the specifics. Ty, I might be coming to the trial at the end of the week or the week after. I'm just wondering if you could give me some idea of what time to be at the courthouse if I want to get a seat. The courtroom opens at the courtroom is actually in use by another judge before 10. So that's why the trial starts at 10:30. So people start arriving around 7 to 8. I got there a little later this morning. I got there around 8:15. The past few days I've gotten there around 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I'm on the media row, but I think if you got there, I would say by 9, but please get there early because who knows, tomorrow there could be 100 people there and then, you're out of luck. What would open the door to the prosecution talking about her Idaho charges? I saw a witness mentioned Idaho. Yes, a witness did mention Idaho yesterday. They didn't go down that road with it. Lori could have said, you mentioned an Idaho trial. What was that about? She didn't. And so I don't know if we'll see if that will come of it. Rhonda, why doesn't the court keep more jurors? Well, it's up to the judge. He chose 4 alternates. He could have had 6, could have had 8. That's a lot of alternates. You also don't want to go overboard. And then, they go down and serve time for 3 or 4 weeks. And then half of them go home because they don't have to deliberate. But so far we haven't lost anything like that, any jurors. Can Lori's interrogation interview be used as evidence by the prosecution or anyone? I don't know if they'll bring that in. That's a great question. We'll have to see. Because it's out there. We know it's out there. With 2 jurors already being dismissed in Lori's case, what happens if they run out of jury members? Is that even possible? It is possible. If 2 more get booted, then no more can be lost. If you lose 3 more, they have to do a mistrial. You don't have a full jury. Does the jury know Lori is a prisoner? Well, they know she's been charged with conspiracy to commit murder. They have not seen her in her jail outfit, and they have not seen her with handcuffs or ankle shackles. So they do know that she, yes, has been charged. I don't know how much they know with the specifics. Nate, does Lori have any family of her own in court? She does not. Well, her uncle has come and cousins, but she doesn't have any others. Yesterday, Idaho was brought up in court. We talked about that. Do you feel like Lori was fixated on CPR? If so, why? A lot of talk about CPR. I don't know if she was fixated. I think she might be trying to find any sort of thing that she can go after, if that's the word, if she can, bring up to be like, hey, why didn't this happen? Or why didn't that happen? So it's maybe she was fixated on it. Someone asked about attending court. We talked about that. Yesterday, Lori left the courtroom. Was she escorted by officers? She's not escorted. She's escorted by an officer opens the door, but then she walks to the table and then she walks out on her own. It's not like they go and stand next to her, but there is a deputy that's about 5 to 10 feet behind her at all times in a uniform. Do you think she's being disrespectful to the judge at times? Some could say that. Our other attorneys are quite passionate. I don't know if they'd be as condescending, if you want to call it that, but yeah, she's definitely passionate about some of her things. What are my thoughts about Lori's behavior and how's she doing serving as her attorney? Well, we've seen different Loris. I talked about this last night. Today we saw the fiery Lori. We saw the I'm going to stand up and I'm going to be an attorney Lori until the last witness when she said she had no questions. So I don't know. We've seen other different Loris. We've seen Loris that are submissive, and we've seen other type of things from her. So I guess you can be the judge as to how you think she's doing. During CrimeCon, can you mention recent updates on JonBenet Ramsey? I might if I do a panel about JonBenet, but I believe John Ramsey is from Colorado where the crimes happened. So I'm pretty sure, I don't know 100% that case will be discussed. I would not be surprised if John Ramsey himself is there. People are asking about putting JJ in the car. On day 2 of the trial, Lori said, we put JJ in the car. What do you make of this? Who's the we? It could be her and Tylee that took JJ out. That's what the way that Lori made it sound. Maybe Charles took him out, lured him back in. Again, these are questions that I wish we knew the answers to, and unfortunately, we just don't. We know what's been said. We know the version of events from certain people who are no longer here or who are on trial. Why doesn't Court TV's pool camera show the evidence being shown on the screen during trial? Great question. Because the judge has ordered that nothing inflammatory or graphic be shown. And he didn't give specifics like, don't show this, do show this. But the media, we have to be very careful following that court order. So that's why it's not panning up to the screen. If it can be shown, if the evidence is not graphic, they will show it, and thus will show it to you. And they're working out their camera kinks and whatnot, but sorry about the audio stuff today, but that's why they're not showing it. Tim says, Nate, can you do your best Nancy Grace impersonation saying, who killed Nate Eaton and is wearing his skin? Nancy said that the other day when I've had more people talk to me about that Nancy Grace interview. What's funny is that after she ended the interview, she said, all right, gotta go, love ya. Nate Eaton, did someone kill you and put on your skin? Nate Eaton, it's always Nate Eaton. One of a law enforcement friend texted me today and said, I'm gonna stand up for you to Nancy Grace. Thank you all for caring so much. Today, Nancy Joe, back to the other Nancy, said that she'd seen Charles's picture on TV in December of that year. Can you tell us why his picture was on TV? I'm betting that when the story broke that JJ and Tylee were missing and that Chad and Lori were on the run, all the media was doing deep dives into the history. And so we probably, especially in Arizona, they're like, Lori Vallow, her husband was killed in July, and they showed him then, because that's when it was all coming together. So that's probably how she saw it on TV. Can I get notifications that Courtroom Insider is coming on? Yes. And here's how you do it. You subscribe to our YouTube channel and you hit the bell. Also, if you're following me on Facebook, I think you should get a notification, but I don't know how that works. And here's where you can find me, by the way. I am at all of these places. I'm on Facebook, I'm on X, I'm on Insta, and I'm on YouTube. And the past few mornings, I've been going live on YouTube before court, and this morning was quite fun. If you weren't part of the conversation, it's a little bit more casual than here. Not that I feel this pretty casual, but this is more just me chatting on the way. And for some reason, you all were asking crazy things like, what brand of toothpaste do I have? And do I wear cologne? And what kind of deodorant? All that sort of stuff. So that can be there. Last question for the night. Sherry, in the courtroom, can you hear Lori whisper when she doesn't realize her mic is on? No. You all probably hear that more than I do, more than the people in the courtroom do, because we're far back. In fact, sometimes we can't even hear what the judge is saying or what Trina Kay is saying or what Lori's saying because they're not talking into their mics. All right, everybody, we had a great night. Thanks for bearing with me with the technical difficulties in the beginning, and we will be back tomorrow. Another day in court, more witnesses. Live stream starts at 10. Live stream starts at 11 Arizona time. And here to remind you, because many of you are still emailing me saying, how do I watch? How do I watch? This will answer all of your questions that you need to know. 11 o'clock Pacific, noon Mountain, 1 Central, 2 Eastern on the East Idaho News YouTube channel, where you can chat with Peggy and our other people who are on there all day, discuss the trial as it's on. I pop in there a time or two and say hello. It's really awesome to go in and see all of you acting as kind of our own little East Idaho News community. I'm about to run out of a voice, so everybody have a great night. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.